Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. So I just wanted to get to a story that flew under the radar a little bit over the holiday period, and if I don't get to it now it's going to have too much moss on it. But ESPN's retrospective top 20 list of prospects for 2017. It includes 3 heavyweights. So at number 4 on the list, Daniel Dubois. At number 11, Tony Yoka. And Junior Fa a spot below at 12. And in case you're wondering, 135-pounder Ryan Garcia topped that list, which was compiled by Dan Raphael. So these sorts of lists, I know they're always very subjective, but they do throw up some good food for thought and generate some interesting debate. So I'll get to the 3 heavyweights that made the cut, what their 2017 looked like, and some thoughts on each. I'm interested in your views on whether these are the right 3 heavyweight prospects to be on this list, or is there someone else that you would have rather seen mentioned? Okay, Daniel Dubois, no arguments from me, highly deserving of his 4th placed ranking on this prospect list. It reflects he's one of the best budding prospects in all of boxing, not just the heavyweight division. He had a whirlwind start to his pro career. He racked up 6 knockouts in 6 bouts, totaling 9 rounds of action. And while some of his opposition clearly wasn't the best, he did what he needed to do and banged some spectacular KOs. So there was some hope that his most recent opponents, AJ Carter and Dorian Darch, they might be able to give him some rounds, the 20-year-old some rounds, but their chins just couldn't stand up to the Brits' punching power. And I've spoken before about my thoughts about Frank Warren not rushing him along, etc., so I'm not going to get into that. But 2018, it should be an interesting year for Daniel Dubois. I'm sure we can probably expect by the end of the year he'll be somewhere in the region of 10-0 or 12-0, something like that. And I guess the real challenge now for Frank Warren is, can he find anyone durable enough at the right level, some durable journeymen, to pit Dubois against? You don't want him eventually getting up to 15-0, 17-0 or something like that in a step-up fight and never having gone past the first few rounds. I mean, sure, he's got a great knockout punch, but eventually someone is going to do enough to avoid it and push him into the later rounds. And you want to have him having some experience. Remember, he doesn't have an extensive amateur background, but you want him having some experience that he can fall back on. He can kind of lean on that and help get him through the situation and get the win. Don't want to get him pushed into deeper waters and he starts floundering. So it should be an interesting year for Daniel Dubois. Tony Yoka was rated as the number 11 prospect in all of boxing by ESPN. So the Frenchman, he won the gold at the 2016 Olympics in Rio, turned pro mid last year, and he racked up 3 wins by year's end. The 25-year-old, he's trained by Virgil Hunter and is promoted by Richard Schaefer, who is looking to bring him along relatively quickly, judging by the opposition so far. So his first gig in the paid ranks was against an undefeated American, Travis Clark, who was 12-0. His second time out was against Jonathan Rice, who had a winning record, and then the third guy that he faced only had 1 loss on his record. All these guys that he's fought so far, they would definitely be more around the sort of, you'd face them in your 10th to 12th fight, somewhere around there, that most guys coming into the paid ranks, that would be about the level that they would get them. So clearly they're looking to bring him on a little bit quicker than a usual prospect. And I actually went back and watched the 6th rounder against Jonathan Rice, which was a unanimous decision for Yoka. He did show some nice things in the ring. He moves well, he's a big guy, 6'7", and he's got good speed, and there were some good flashes from him. But there were a few things that did concern me a little. Rice was able to tag him a number of times, push him around the ring as well, and he never seemed that concerned with Yoka's power. It certainly got me wondering, should they actually slow things down and let Yoka ease himself into the game a bit more? It'd be disastrous if Yoka was rushed into a matchup he wasn't quite ready for and ended up getting clipped by a decent journeyman. I mean, some of these journeymen, they can really crack. I definitely still have some questions about Yoka and how far he can go. And, you know, something at the back of my mind, it keeps making me think, is this guy's career going to mirror Audley Harrison's career trajectory. Highly hyped prospect that maybe doesn't quite deliver at the level people expect. Sure, he's got talent, but I do need to see more. And I do hope he's given the opportunity to actually reach his full potential, whatever that may be. Junior Fa, he is the third and last heavyweight prospect on ESPN's list at number 12. So he's 13-0 and been a pro since 2016. And until recently, he had largely gone under the radar, even in his home country of New Zealand, where Joseph Parker hogs all the boxing headlines, basically. My read on Fa's place on this list is it's basically based off one performance, his destructive win over Fred Latham late in 2017, who at that point in his career was also unbeaten. The rest of Fa's year, it was somewhat forgettable, and he was hampered by a few injuries in the first half of the year. So Fa is a good example of a guy who benefited from a change of scenery. He changed the way that he trains, and he changed his trainer. And as a result, he changed the way that he fights in the ring. So whereas previously he'd been prone to sort of sitting behind his jab cautiously, maybe fighting a bit smaller than he really should have, he went absolute beast mode against Latham. And that aggressive performance, it turned heads. A lot of heads. And it certainly was the culmination of a lot of hard work over a number of months. And for me, Fa, he is at that stage where he's kind of reaching the end of his prospect phase, and he's sort of on the edge of being a fringe contender. He needs to start making his way towards some gatekeeper fights, and hopefully by the end of 2018, he's something like 16-0, 17-0, somewhere thereabouts, with another couple of appropriate step-up fights under his belts. Maybe break into a ranking, one of them. I mean, that would certainly prime him for a big 2019. I think this year it is about working the way through the levels, just keeping that progression going. And I would note, I mean, there have been some lingering questions amongst some New Zealand boxing fans, in particular, about Fa's punch resistance. How good is his chin? I mean, the next year or two, it could certainly very well tell us the answer either way. So ESPN, it went with Dubois, Yoka and Fa from the heavyweight division. Personally, I probably would have gone with a different mix and would have had Filip Hrgović in my three. Dubois, he definitely would have been in there, as I believe those two guys, they are the two standout prospects right now. Fa and Yoka, very good, don't get me wrong. But I do feel there's another half dozen or so to maybe 8 guys who are on about the same plane as Yoka and Fa at this current point. Who would you have as your 3 prospects on this sort of list? Let me know. Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.